Well, happy Friday to everybody. Here it is, the first Friday in the year of 2020. And hopefully it's going to be a good year. Let's try and get it off to a good start. So our shout outs today, the first one is for MD Melbourne. Jim's a nice fella. You should go down there, check him. Well, you don't have to go down there to check him out. You can just go on YouTube and check him out. But if you happen to be going to Melbourne, Australia, I guess you could give him a call. But check out MD Melbourne. Jim does metal detecting, and he's quite a fella, good sense of humor, and I really enjoy watching his videos. So, MD Melbourne. And the second one is for a nice young fellow down in the south. I believe, I could be wrong. It's happened before, believe it or not. I know it's hard to believe, but I have been wrong before. But check out Life with Aircrafts and Trains. And nice young fellow down in, I believe, the southeastern U.S. And, well, the name of his YouTube channel is pretty self-explanatory. He does videos on aircrafts and trains. So go check him out and give him some love. And you can tell both Jim and aircrafts and trains that Ian sent you over if you want to. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, you certainly can do that. All right, let's get on to our story time for today. Well, we're still in the season of Christmas. Indeed, until Sunday evening will be the eve of the Feast of the Epiphany, and then Monday will be Epiphany. And I was corrected on my last video. I had said that Orthodox Christmas was the 6th, and it is not. It is the 7th. So the 6th is Orthodox Christmas Eve. So my apologies to those of you who follow the Orthodox calendar. Apparently I was off by a day. But I'm sure you wouldn't have complained if I dropped presents off a day early, right? Hopefully not? Oh, okay. Anyway, thank you to Jim, MD Melbourne, for correcting me on that. Jim happens to be Orthodox, so he was able to set me straight on my goof. But anyway, the 6th is the eve of the Epiphany, when we celebrate the wise men, and that's what our story is about today, Epiphany. So let's get to it, shall we? Most people have heard the word Epiphany, but few Americans, and North Americans for that matter, have full understanding of its meaning. In modern terminology, epiphany is defined as, quote, an intuitive grasp of reality, usually through something simple and striking, an illuminating discovery, a revealing scene or moment, unquote. In simpler language, it means to show, to make known, to reveal. But what was the revealing moment that generated an important Christian holiday? Why has Epiphany been celebrated almost as long as Christmas and Easter? And how do the important events that are remembered on this day relate to the celebration of Christmas? Most Christian cultures teach that when the wise men, or magi, completed their journey and located Jesus, an epiphany transpired. Many people consider this event to be the initial manifestation of Christ as Savior and King. The fact that foreigners, who probably knew little of the Jewish faith, traveled so far to honor this baby seems to foreshadow Jesus' great mission to be the light of revelation to all people. See Luke chapter 2, verses 25 to 32. Maybe that is why Epiphany, known as a Christian holy day in America, little known as a Christian holy day in America, is so important to many Christians throughout Europe, Latin America, and elsewhere, that they believe the events that transpired on this day are more consequential to the Christian faith than even the day of Christ's birth. In the 4th century, the era's most celebrated preacher, Augustine, so romanticized and embellished the story of the Epiphany that he almost ruined it. In the famous preacher's version of Epiphany, the gift-bearing magi were bestowed with an upgraded social standing. Augustine made them members of the royalty, kings if you will. This embellishment created an even larger problem in connection with the secular celebration of Christ's birth. Many Christians still observe Christmas as the Romans had celebrated the winter solstice, with drinking and raucous parties, and with Epiphany, the clerics hoped to mark a new, more inspired holiday thinking was that Epiphany would pave the way for a more religious commemoration of the events of Jesus' birth. Yet, because of the Magi's new claim to royal blood, Augustine's legendary version of the day of revelation eventually backfired on the church. In many places, Epiphany was literally taken over by members of the royal families. A host of blue bloods completely bought into Augustine's legend that the wise men were actually monarchs. Kings, queens, and others in their families embraced this retelling of the Magi's trip, as if it were the gospel. They therefore saw Epiphany as a day to celebrate themselves, their role in society, and Christ's supposed close association with the world's monarchs. Plus, as people who obviously held such a place of honor in God's world, it afforded the rulers an opportunity to be honored by their subjects. Hence, on January 6, the day designated as Epiphany, kings, queens, dukes, duchesses, and other members of the ruling class put on their finest clothing and staged huge parties to celebrate the arrival of their ancestors at the nativity scene. This meant that the day was filled with the type of events that had typified pagan festivals in the royal castle: singing, dancing, plays, magic acts, and even games of chance. Thanks to Augustine's invention of the kings from the East, in almost every country, Epiphany slowly mutated from a time of recognizing the real meaning of the wise men's gifts to Jesus into a day that all bowed before earthly monarchs and paid tribute to these guardians of the state. In the Middle Ages, in much of the European world, Epiphany had evolved into something more like Mardi Gras than a holy day. And by this time, the holiday was probably better known as King's Day or Twelfth Night than it was as the Feast of the Holy Epiphany. After a while, the celebrations of Epiphany grew as unruly and as riotous as the riots and acts that characterize Christmas Day. In some countries, mock kings were chosen by a vote or by wagering. The main job of these mock kings, known as kings of the misrule, was to lead the masses in toast after toast to whatever and whomever they chose. Needless to say, the wise men were rarely acknowledged during the festivities, and the church was put on the back burner on the very day when the universality of Christ's faith would have been made most clear. Thanks in large part to Prince Albert and Queen Victoria, Christmas in England and America finally became a festive family time in the mid-1800s. It's ironic that it took a royal family to toss royalty out of Epiphany and to make January 6 a holiday to celebrate the revelation of the Magi. Epiphany was considered the final day of the holiday season, which ran from Christmas Eve to the Eve of Epiphany. And in this new form, Epiphany became a time once again to gather as a family, take down the decorations and trees, and sing carols. With this transformation, Epiphany had finally become what the 4th century church leaders had wanted, a spiritual holiday. On the eve of Epiphany, church services were held, prayers were said, dried herbs were baked or simmered, filling homes with a pungent smell of spices, and the letters C, M, and B were written above the doors of many houses. It was said that these letters represented the names of the Magi, Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. In truth, no one knows how many wise men made the journey to find Jesus. Actually, if you read the story in the Bible, it just says that wise men came from the east, or Magi came from the east. It does not mention how many. And the reason we often think 3 is because of the 3 gifts: frankincense, myrrh, and gold. But the Bible does not indicate the number. It says, "In truth, no one knows how many wise men made the journey to find Jesus, much less what their names were. Like Augustine's kings, these names were simply an invention. Today's scholars believe the letters painted over the doors actually stood for the Latin Christus Mansionem Benedictat, which means Christ bless this home. That meaning was evidently lost over the years, and as the wise men were given fictional names, many who wrote the letters believed them to be a welcoming sign for the wise men themselves. In other words, this was an ancient version of the signs children place in yards today that say, "Santa, please stop here." Children would put out food for the Magi and hay for the wise men's horses or camels. Then they would anxiously go to bed. The next morning the little ones hurried outside to see if the wise men had come and taken their offerings. Usually the food had disappeared and been replaced by gold coins. Many people in England and America continued to celebrate Epiphany in this fashion until the end of the 1800s, when the new tradition of Santa Claus, or Father Christmas, moved almost all gift-giving to December 25th. The celebration of Epiphany began to wane, and the wise men became just another facet of the Christmas pageant, cards and songs such as We Three Kings. Yet in many other nations, Epiphany was not lost and is still an important part of the holidays. In areas influenced by German customs, on January 6th, children dress up as the Magi, follow a child who holds a large star, and travel door to door until they find the home that has been designated as the place where the baby Jesus is staying. The children then leave monetary gifts that they have collected or that have been given to them by the church. These gifts are later passed along to help the poor and the sick. In Argentina, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and most areas of Mexico, where Epiphany is still usually called King's Day, the wise men leave presents on the eve of the Epiphany, just as they did more than 2,000 years ago for the Christ child. And in most of these nations, a king's cake is baked and eaten on January 6th. In Spain and Italy, many children leave out shoes filled with barley for the Magi's animals. According to an ancient legend, a kindly witch named La Befana, who missed the trip with the Magi to the manger, now accompanies these wise men and leaves gifts for the children. In many seaport communities in Spain, a boat comes into the harbor on the morning of the Epiphany, and the Magi disembark. The three men then parade through the streets, sharing greetings of goodwill and giving candy to the children who line the parade route. The churches in the United States and Britain that still observe Epiphany have recently been trying to restore the day's original meaning. These congregations teach that the anniversary of the arrival of the wise men is a time to focus on the real mission of Christian faith and its body of believers. In worship services, people discover that Epiphany is a time to put aside cultural, racial, and social differences and recognize that Jesus came to offer salvation to all people. Hence, the holiday is again taking on a sense of the brotherhood that Christ tried to bring to the world during his lifetime. If Epiphany can be revived, it might well become the answer to the long-wished-for holiday that reflects reverently on the birth of Jesus. As a bookend to Christmas, it could become the vessel that puts a truly spiritual cap on the holiday season. So there you have it. That's the story of Epiphany. And if you read the scriptures, it's actually believed Jesus was probably 2 or 3 years old by the time the Magi found him. He wasn't actually at the manger anymore. It says in scripture that they came to the place where Jesus was. And they refer to him then as a child, not as an infant. So there you have it. If you don't know the story, you should go to your scriptures and read it. And you might be enlightened about some of the things that you didn't realize and some things you've taken for granted that aren't actually true. So hope you enjoyed today's story and learned something from it. Alrighty, let's get to our groaner. Well, a gentleman was walking along the beach one day. Where? I don't know. What country? I don't know. Just a beach. Man on a beach. And I'm guessing it was probably in North America, though. Somewhere in North America, he was walking along a beach. And he saw something sticking out of the sand. So he stopped and he cleaned it off. Maybe it was a metal detector, and he was detector beeped. Anyway, he cleaned off this object, and guess what? It was an old, ancient lamp. That's right, the kind like in Aladdin. And of course, he's brushing the sand off it, so he's rubbing it. And all of a sudden, the lamp shakes, and poof, and smoke pours out of the spout, and a genie appears. Yep, it's a genie joke. And the genie looks at him and says, "You have disturbed my slumber. Why have you done this?" The guy goes, "Oh, I didn't mean to. Sorry, I just found this on the beach and I was cleaning it. I didn't mean to disturb your slumber." "Well, you have, and now you are my master. And as my master, you are granted 3 wishes. So please name your wishes and I will take care of them, and then I can go back to my slumber." 3 wishes, really? Yes, 3 wishes. Oh, gee, I don't know. Come on, I want to go back to my sleep. I don't like it out here in the big world. I like my confined space, so please. He goes, "Well, I guess I wish for long life and health for my family and myself." Genie says, "Granted," folds his arms. "What else?" "I wish for financial security, that I don't ever have to worry about money or finances again for as long as I live, or for my family, as long as they live." "Simple. Granted." "And your 3rd wish?" "Oh, gee, I don't know. Can't think of anything." And I'm kind of concerned, because I know I've heard these stories before, and it's always the 3rd wish that gets people in trouble. I don't want the 3rd wish. Sorry, you have to have the 3rd wish. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just that's how things are. You have to have the 3rd wish. "Well, I don't know what I want." And the genie says, "Well, if you'll let me go back into my lamp, then what I will do is your 3rd wish will be waiting for you. So when you decide what you want, all you have to do is say, 'I wish,' name whatever it is you wish for, and it's yours. Deal?" And the fellow says, "It's a deal." The genie says, "Thank you, master," and funnels back down through the spout into the lamp. Well, now the fellow doesn't know what to do with the lamp, so he goes out. It's low tide, so he goes out as far as he can, and he digs, and he digs, and he digs the deepest hole he can, and fill him with water, and he puts the lamp down there, and he buries it, smooths the sand out, and thinks, okay, it's safe. Nobody will disturb his slumber again. Well, things go really well. The fellow gets home, and his daughter that was ill with a flu when he left that morning is healthy and well, and everything's good. And his wife calls and says, "You're never going to believe it, but I checked our lottery tickets this morning, and we won. We won the lottery. We're millionaires." Wow, the guy's just flabbergasted. Everything's great. So anyway, life goes on. Everything's good for about 3 months, and then one day the fellow's driving along in his car, and he flicks on the radio, and he's listening to different things, and an advertisement comes on with a catchy jingle, and without even thinking, he just sings right along. "Oh, I wish I were an Oscar Mayer wiener. That is what I'd truly love to be." Boing, boing, boing. There you go. There's your groaner for the day. Hope you have a lovely day. If you find a genie, make sure you use all your wishes wisely, and don't become an Oscar Mayer wiener. I have a feeling it wouldn't be a very good life. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed today's events. Until Tuesday, when we make something, which will be, I'm sorry, what is Tuesday? Tuesday will be the 7th, the 2nd day of the Feast of Epiphany. We'll see you then. We'll come up with something fun to make in the kitchen. And until then, have a great weekend. Stay healthy. Enjoy your new year. And stay safe. God bless. And we'll see you then.